Howdy, 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 my name's Sasuke, and welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the last episode, we breached the 500s with, Panacea, which I've already completely forgotten what it was. But that's not important right now. For this episode, we're going to start with Monk's Greed and go up through the ink stain. So let's check that out. Well, it's Euclid. SCP-501 is kept in a securely locked opaque safe in a cell 5 by 5 by 5 meters in Site 3. The cell is guarded by 2 level 2 security guards who undergo daily psychological evaluations. Okay. The interior of the cell must be monitored at all times by no fewer than 2 security cameras, with a separate guard observing the monitor for each camera. These cameras must be connected to a backup generator so they will continue functioning in the event of a blackout. All requests for experiments must be cleared by at least 3 overseers. Any personnel attempting to gain unauthorized access to SCP-501's containment cell must either be detained, will be either detained for psychological evaluation or terminated, depending on clearance level. Every time I see overseers, is it like the O5s or O5s? Yeah, is it the O5s or the overseers of the project? I'm not sure. In any case, due to the nature of 501's psychological effects when viewed, it is difficult to ascertain an accurate visual description. According to reports from disposable dudes who have had visual contact with 501, it is an American $1 bill that radiates a glowing amber aura. Robotically controlled chemical analysis indicates that it is chemically identical to ordinary dollar bills. Wasn't this called the Monk's Guilt? Or Monk's Greed? When a person views 501, they are immediately overwhelmed by a desire to obtain it. Studies with disposable dudes have shown that this desire fades after a time, but that the time increases exponentially the longer it is viewed. Further studies have shown that those affected by 501 will stop at nothing to fulfill their desire, willingly resorting to violence and even self-mutilation to achieve their goal. I don't understand how self-mutilation would help them obtain $1. Viewing 501 indirectly through a monitor or while wearing vision and reducing goggles does not seem to hinder its effect in any way. An experiment was conducted to ascertain the effect of 501 on individuals who are successful in obtaining it. Disposable dude D501 was chained to the wall of the containment cell, and all other personnel were evacuated from the cell. The security monitors were briefly switched off as a programmed robotic arm opened the safe containing 501, allowing D501 to view it briefly. The arm then proceeded to move 501 onto a machine in the cell that hermetically sealed 501 in an opaque jet black steel case. Researchers then re-entered the cell and unchained disposable 501 from the wall, allowing him to obtain the sealed 501, at which point the researchers moved to a safe viewing location to observe his actions. Or the actions of them. Did they say it was a he? No, it's just disposable dude 501. A speaker was placed on the ceiling and researchers were instructed to grant all requests made by disposable 501 that would not involve releasing him from the cell. Okay, they did say it. Would not result in possible visual exposure to the researchers of 501, and would not violate safety or security protocols. The test began at 1:43 p.m. And it looks like it was October the 20th. Subject acquires the sealed 501, stares at it without blinking for 10 minutes. Researchers believe that the subject is still able to see 501 even through its sealed case. At 1:53, the subject suddenly stops staring and begins to strip off all of his clothes. Researchers hear him muttering, "I must remove the contamination," repeatedly as he does this. At 1:55, they throw all their clothing into the corner of the room, after which he looks into the speaker and requests a razor. Request tentatively granted. The razor is carried in by an armed security guard. The subject takes the item and the guard leaves. Subject immediately and violently shaves off all the hair on his body and discards it in the same corner as his clothes. Subject cuts himself several times in the process but does not seem to react or notice. As he shaves, he is heard over the speaker repeatedly muttering, "Be gone, unwanted possessions." Subject discards the razor in a similar fashion to his hair and clothes after he finishes using it. At 2 o'clock, they enter the lotus position and begin to meditate without closing his eyes or taking his eyes off of the sealed 501. At 2:23, subject is heard whispering, "I see," to himself. He stands up and looks again at the speaker. He says, "I hereby renounce all of my worldly possessions other than the Holy One. I do not need anything other than the Holy One. Everything else is a contamination and must be forsaken." The researcher acknowledges the request, after which the subject immediately returns to his meditative stance. At noon of the 4 days later, they cease breathing. He has not moved since he resumed his meditation, and is presumed to have died of thirst. Huh. So, I guess it means they want the dollar really, really badly, and then they just achieve nirvana? The surrogate heart. That sounds like it's going to be terrifying. Safe, but probably still terrifying. SCP-502 is to be secured in a keypad-locked steel fire cabinet in the medical suites at blank. The key code is to be changed on a bi-weekly basis for security reasons. Senior medical staff on site will have knowledge of the key code, as will at least 3 other on-site personnel of level 3 or higher clearance. Description: SCP-502 was obtained from the Donovan County Coroner's Office in Troy, Kansas in 1990-something. It was discovered by local coroner Blankety Blank during a routine autopsy of a Jared Thomas McIntyre following his death in a motorcycle collision. 502 was located in the space that should have been occupied by the deceased's heart and was attached to his pulmonary and circulatory systems. 502 was later retrieved by SB agents after Blankety Blank began circulating questions about the box. When unlabeled, 502 has the appearance of an off-white cardboard container, I almost said cardboard box, which is probably the same thing, but container, with dimensions of 9.5 centimeters by 9.75 centimeters by 7.73 centimeters, with a removable lid measuring 9.95 by 9.95 by 1.34. The thickness of the cardboard at all locations is exactly 0.10 centimeters. There are no visible seams on the corners or edges of the box or lid, nor any interior reinforcements. When initially recovered, the item had the word HEART written on it in cursive handwriting in what appeared to be blue ink, and had holes in the sides and back that approximated the insertion points of the vena cava, aorta, pulmonary arteries, and veins, as well as internal divisions that resembled the chambers of a heart. When an appropriate organ name is written on the lid of 502, it slowly rearranges itself into a crude approximation of that organ. If a second organ name is written on the lid, the first name written will disappear within 20 minutes, at which time rearrangement to the new configuration will begin. If all names are erased from the lid, the standard size will be adopted. If 502 is surgically implanted in a human subject while labeled as an organ and appropriately attached to the relevant organ systems, it will function in a manner identical to the organ. Testing has determined that 502 will only function under certain circumstances. The subject to receive a replacement organ must be a living human and must be missing the organ before 502 is introduced to the subject's body. If any of these conditions are not met, the replacement organ will either be rejected or will not function at all. Following extensive testing, it has been decided by 05 Blank that due to 502's potential life-saving capabilities, it will be kept in storage and is only to be implanted into a human in case of life-threatening injury to any director or in emergency situations with approval of any director to lower level staff or civilians that must be kept alive temporarily to assist in SCP-related information gathering or containment. In case of 502 being used to sustain any individual other than the director, the subject is to be terminated as soon as is feasible and 502 to be returned to storage. Addendum: for testing procedures, those with level 3 clearance should see documents 502-1 and 2. Document 1. Test log for the initial phase of 502. On May 18th, 90-something, lid of box reads heart at beginning of testing. Lung, liver, pancreas, and eye are written on the lid at one at a time. On each occasion, the previously written word faded from view over a period of time ranging from 5 minutes 11 seconds to a maximum of 18 minutes 4 seconds. After this, the exterior dimensions and interior design of 502 slowly changed to accommodate the respective organ. When skin is written on the lid, 502 flattened to 1.6 centimeters in thickness and continued to expand in length and width until researchers were forced to erase the word with acetone and allow the box dimensions to return to default. On the 23rd of May, organ names are written on the lid in a variety of mediums including ink, graphite, oil paint, water-based paint, crayon, blood, and permanent marker. All functioned, although easily erased or damaged mediums also resulted in 502 reverting to its standard size when the word was damaged. On June 17th, organ names written on the lid in Latin, Greek, Russian, Chinese, Japanese, French, Italian, Esperanto, and blank. 502 showed no reaction except in cases where the organ name was identical in spelling to the English name. Document 2. Test log for live testing in subjects 502-1 through 6. 1. Disposable dude chosen for diagnosed renal failure. I don't know what that is. Okay, I guess it's kidney failure of some kind. Kidney written on box lid and time allowed for rearrangement. One of the subject's kidneys is surgically removed. After successful implantation... yeah, I said that right. 502-1's urinalysis shows an improvement in renal function satisfactory for a healthy individual. 502 was recovered after the subject's standard monthly termination. Disposable 2. With full renal function, kidney is still written on the box lid from previous tests. One of the subject's kidneys is surgically removed after successful implantation. The second disposable dude's urinalysis shows renal function equivalent to that of a healthy individual. recovered after monthly termination. Let's see. 3. Class D subject who died in custody due to cardiac failure. Heart is written on lid and time allowed for rearrangement. 502 is successfully implanted and attached to the pulmonary and circulatory systems, but results in no function or reanimation. Disposable 4. Disposable dude with no medical issues. Gills written on box lid and time allowed for rearrangement. Subject's lungs are removed while on life support machinery and replaced with 502, but proper attachment could not be finalized and subject dies during surgery. 5. Adult Labrador Retriever suffering from hepatic failure. I don't know what that is. I guess it's liver failure. Liver written on box lid and time allowed for rearrangement. Liver removed and replaced with 502, however the SCP is rejected in under 24 hours and subject dies. Subject 6. Disposable dude with a history of mental illness due to a diagnosed brain tumor. Brain written on box lid and time allowed for rearrangement. Brain is removed while on life support machinery and replaced with 502. Upon waking from anesthesia, subject 6 data expunged. 2 medical staff and 3 level 2 security personnel are injured and subject 6 is killed by small arms fired during hostilities to prevent further danger to staff. 502 recovered during autopsy. Further live testing halted while data expunged recorded during this incident are being analyzed. So it sounds like they put the box inside the person's head, made it be a brain, and that resulted in an SCP controlling somebody's body and doing things to people, somehow. Honestly, I don't know what they thought was going to happen. But now it's time to see the luckiest man in the world. Which I feel like I may have read before. It honestly feels like I've read this before. But I'm not sure. 503 is to be kept within a secure holding cell at all times. No fewer than 4 security cameras must be positioned within the cell. SCP-503 must be under constant observation. Any strange movements or attempts to obscure the view of the cameras must be treated as a full-scale emergency. Any researcher studying 503 must be searched for dangerous objects before entering its cell. The cell must be searched daily for any potentially dangerous objects. Note on procedures. The searches are not optional. I don't care if you think they're a waste of time. I refer anyone who thinks otherwise to Incident Report 503B, which I hope is in here. Dr. Blank. SCP-503 is a Caucasian male, 63 years of age. Subject is bald, formerly black hair with brown eyes. Lower jaw is on prosthesis as a result of Incident A. There is a large scar on the subject's chest as a result of test log 5035. Is that here? I don't know. 503 demonstrates a remarkable proclivity towards short-term good fortune and long-term misfortune. This was first apparent at age 11 when the subject was involved in an automobile accident with his family. While the subject survived, his parents as well as 2 siblings died. In addition, the subject was trapped within the car for blank days before rescue. The subject has had 3 marriages, the first ending in divorce, the second ending when the subject's wife was killed in an automobile accident, the third when the subject's wife committed suicide. During this time, the subject has had 10 children, none of whom currently live. As far as the subject is aware, it has no living family. The subject has survived falling from a 34th story window, a plane crash in the North Atlantic, 2 additional automobile accidents, and the destruction of the World Trade Center on 9/11/2001. It has survived suicide attempts via hanging, overdose, self-immolation, and firearms, see Incident A. Although the subject has won the lottery on 2 separate occasions, by the time the Foundation took custody of it, medical bills had left it in heavy debt. 503 is currently being studied by Dr. Blank to determine if the subject's properties can be reverse engineered to increase the survival chances of field agents. Incident A. 6 days before 503 came into Foundation custody, it attempted suicide via shotgun. As it held the shotgun along its torso, firing up through the jaw somehow absorbed most of the blast, destroying the jaw and causing massive cranial trauma. A neighbor who heard the blast found the subject and took it to the hospital, where it was discovered and retrieved by the Foundation agents who had been monitoring the hospital for a possible outbreak of SCP blank. 100-something. Incident Report B. And the test logging is in there. During the experiment recorded in test log 503 blank, research assistant blank was not searched by security prior to entering the subject's cell. During the experiment, they left behind a ballpoint pen with which 503 attempted to kill itself 31 minutes after the end of the experiment. Although it survived, it was left in critical condition for 6 days. Research assistant has been disciplined and reassigned. Test log 1. Card-based guessing game, 100% success. Game 2, Gamer Roulette, 100% success. Poker, won every hand until last, at which point subject went all in and lost game. Okay, we've established he's good at games. That's not why we're interested in him, we need to go bigger. Firearm aimed at head point blank range. Result, 60 consecutive misfires with 17 different weapons. Later laboratory testing determined that the weapons failed due to, variously, jams caused by debris, malfunctioning parts, or total mechanical failure. A particular note is the final weapon used, a revolver, a type of weapon renowned for its reliability, which jammed due to a slight mechanical defect that could only be replicated after 254 test shots in the laboratory, and since then has yet to be replicated a second time despite blank additional test firings. During Test 4, the revolver failed to fire 8 consecutive times. Test 5, Russian roulette with one empty chamber aimed at subject's chest. Result, severe trauma in the chest, bullet passes through center of heart, piercing no chambers, rib broken, subject survives. Note, Dr. Blank has been disciplined and reassigned. Dr. Blank will carry out further testing. 05 blank. See test report 503 blankety blank for additional test. Guess we won't see that, but it sounds like what the deal was is he's super lucky for things that are happening immediately, but the direct result of that is anything further into his life goes bad. So, survived car crash, yay! Family died, aw. Survived other thing, yay! Other people die, aw. Have loving marriage, yay! Something terrible happens to wife, aw. Had 10 kids, yay! All of them are dead now, aw. So that seems like, I feel like there should probably be some quotations over luckiest. But now it's time for critical tomatoes. I don't know if that's like the opposite of rotten tomatoes. All seeds, plants, fruits, crossbreeds, and other products of 504 to be classified as 504. 504 seeds need no special containment other than to prevent misuse by unauthorized personnel. Grown 504 plants and their fruit should be kept in soundproof rooms. Guards and researchers assigned to maturing or growing 504 are to be equipped with radio-enabled masks, which insulate non-transmitted sound and are to be instructed to avoid attempts at humor. 504 is a species of tomato physically and genetically identical to that of the typically commercially grown tomato. It was recovered in Redacted, Kentucky after a woman reported to the police that her farmer husband had been murdered by his lunch. The Foundation is currently working to identify and destroy loose strains of 504 in the surrounding commercial farming areas. When a poor attempt at humor is made verbally within human hearing range of 504's tomatoes, they instantly accelerate to a speed of at least 100 miles per hour, approximately 160 kilometers per hour, 45 meters per second, in the direction of the sound source. Only mature tomatoes, separated from their vines and less than 10% rotted or chemically comprised, exhibit this effect once each. Tomatoes do not have to be physically intact, though ingested tomatoes are usually insulated enough from the sound to prevent their effects before neutralization by stomach acid. 504 tomatoes seem to reach speeds relative to the inciting attempt at humor, see experiment log. Relevant variables seem to include corniness, humor to length ratio, and use of puns. Language appears irrelevant. Note, whoever snuck 405 into the cafeteria kitchen is getting terminated. Those tomato slices are like fucking shuriken. Dr. Blast. Log of text. One mature tomato. Disposable dude 1. Is a hippopotamus or just a really cool opotamus? No change in velocity. I guess that was a good joke. Same person. What's an archaeologist? Someone whose career is in ruins. Tomato clocked in at 124 miles per hour. Subject suffered a broken nose. It appears that 504 has a certain taste in jokes. This might indicate sapience. I hope not. Disposable 2. 3 tomatoes are walking down the street. A papa tomato, a mama tomato, and a little baby tomato. Baby tomato starts lagging behind. Papa tomato gets angry, goes over to the baby tomato and smooshes him and says, ketchup. Tomato clocked at 264 miles per hour. Subject rendered unconscious. 1 mature tomato. Disposable dude 3. So I was going to bed and my brother told me, good night, don't let the bedbug stick proboscis in your skin and suck your blood. Pause. Good luck on a healthy dermis. 2-second pause before activity. Tomato clocked it. Redacted. Sound barrier broken. Subject killed. Yeah, that was pretty bad. 3 mature tomatoes, each from a different crossbreed. Disposable 4. If you have dentures, don't use artificial sweetener because you'll get a fake cavity. All 3 tomatoes clocked exactly 145 miles per hour. Subject injured, 2 teeth dislodged. Let's see. Disposable 5. I tried to walk into Target, but I missed. All four pieces of tomato clocked at 212 miles per hour. Subject severely injured, right eye destroyed by a piece of tomato. 1 mature tomato. CD player playing Harmful If Swallowed by Dane Cook. At Redacted, Tomato clocked 167 miles per hour, CD player destroyed. It works with recordings? Damn it. Didn't even have to deal with Class Ds in the first place. 3 mature tomatoes, one for each test subject. After the introduction to the following news item, bomb blows hole in Lenin statue, the 3 following jokes were made. Subject 1. Oh, that's going to leave a marks. Tomato number 1 twitched, but did not displace from its original location. BBC is just stalling the good news. Tomato clocked at 152 miles per hour, chipped tooth and hairline jaw fracture. That blows. Tomato clocked it, redacted. Subject is hospitalized with a massive skull fracture. Notes. I thought we just established that recordings work in place of live subjects. I know how much you guys hate the Class Ds, especially 50412. Poor guy might not even recover before termination rolls around. But I'm making it clear that whoever oversaw this round of testing is getting a serious reprimand. The same goes for whoever leaked its video logs to the staff. Was that an actual news report? Yeah. One mature tomato, television playing SNL, Sarah Palin, and Hillary Clinton skit. Tomato reacted as if confused. Slow motion video shows 3 separate bursts of speed in excess of 200 miles per hour, 2 incidences of motion at normal throwing speeds, and 1 unprecedented instance of backward motion, all in the one trajectory. Dr. King hypothesized that the tomato was unsure whether or not to take it seriously. One mature tomato, a portable computer playing a pre-recorded engineering joke. Transcript. 2009 is going to be a complex year. We already know the real part. We have to find the imaginary part. Result. Supersonic blast detected. Computer was completely vaporized by the tomato's kinetic energy. Sensor readings indicated an approximate speed of 3,500 kilometers per hour. Let's see. One mature tomato, a portable computer playing a partial audio recording of the Monty Python sketch The Funniest Joke in the World. Transcript. When ist das Nunstruck geht uns Lottermeier? Ja! Bayer Hund das der Flipper Waltz. Guess what? Tomato explodes! Debris clocked at 137 miles per hour, computer heavily coated by debris, keyboard ruined by exposure to liquid matter, all other components proved functional after cleanup. One mature tomato, a portable computer playing the text of SCP-904, data expunged. Okay, so they're not like the Rotten Tomatoes website. It's like when someone's on the stage and their performance is terrible, so they're like, boo, and start throwing tomatoes, except that the tomatoes throw themselves and can break the sound barrier and just vaporize computers if the joke is really bad. Also, I guess these tomatoes just don't really like Saturday Night Live. But that's great, I like that one, that's great. Now it's time for Inkstain. I was literally just about to say, man, it's been a while since I've gotten a Keter SCP. Maybe it'll be another episode without one, and then boom, Keter. So, I guess I'll get the serious Keter voice ready. SCP-505 is contained in a 50 meter by 40 meter by 10 meter room at Site Blank. SCP-505's containment area is to be sealed other than one secure airlock and a series of pipes allowing transport of SCP-505-1 to storage tanks in the event of one reaching levels in which it poses a danger to containment. Sprayers for 4-MNaOH, which I don't know the chemical of, are to be available through 505's containment area and the rest of Site Blank to combat a containment breach. In the event of a spill of one, the affected area should immediately be covered with an absorbent material. Commercial blotting paper is currently standard for this purpose, and doused with alcohol or acetone if NaOH is not immediately available. Let me just check what this is. Sodium hydroxide. Okay. If sodium hydroxide immersion is not immediately available. Sodium hydroxide immersion is the method of choice for one's containment, followed by incineration of affected material if practicable. There are currently blank instances of points of secondary contamination outside of 505's primary containment area. Containment in these areas is viable, but efforts have been made to make procedures as similar to those of the primary site as if possible. Of these secondary containment zones, blank are unable to be fully contained at this time, resulting in the spread of 505-1 throughout the environment. These sites are to be monitored at all times, and countermeasures development is of the highest priority. For a complete list of secondary containment sites, see document 505-14A blank. SCP-505 is a model blank Faber-Castell fountain pen produced in 2001. For documentation of its acquisition by the Foundation, see Addendum 2. It is identical in all respects to a standard fountain pen apart from its association with SCP-5051. 5051 is the black ink produced by 505, which exhibits the property of self-replication. One spreads at a variable rate affected by the substance it comes into contact with and the amount of one present. Quantities of one have been shown to increase at rates between 0.5 and 540 milliliters per second. Standard ink removing chemicals are able to partially remove one and inhibit its spread. However, sodium hydroxide is necessary to remove one contamination completely, and has shown to be ineffective in environments with particularly high one concentrations. Fortunately, the growth rate of SCP-5051 appears to be inversely proportional to its quantity at high concentrations. Whilst the observed effects of this are negligible in most cases, this inverse growth phenomenon provides the only explanation for the partial containment of 5051, despite a number of cases of large-scale environmental contamination which were projected to otherwise lead to an NK-class end-of-the-world scenario. While 1 exhibits no unusual properties other than its constant speed and partial resistance to removal, it nonetheless poses serious difficulties for control. 1 will flow across non-absorbent surfaces and pass through porous surfaces in an identical fashion to normal ink. All liquid or solid objects or beings in contact with 1 will be contaminated. 1 will still adhere to non-porous surfaces such as metals, but newly produced 1 will constantly flow off. Non-porous materials are thus catalysts for 1 spread, and all of 1 contamination should be covered in porous material such as blotting paper for this reason. It is not possible to permanently contain 1 in a non-porous container, as said container's contents will gradually increase in quantity, leading to increased pressure and subsequent rupture. All containers being used to contain 1 must therefore be drained periodically to prevent a containment breach. 1's effects on its environment are identical to those of an equivalent quantity of standard fountain pen ink. 1 exposure will inevitably lead to the death of living organisms. Plant matter will be killed due to inhibition of photosynthesis, whereas animals will be killed due to chemical poisoning. In humans and other mammals, 1 contact will most likely be via the skin, where it will spread until it reaches an orifice or a break in the skin and subsequently enter the vascular system through mucous membranes. 1 will spread through the vasculature and have catastrophic effects on all organ systems it reaches, as it continuously replicates and is unable to be excreted by the urinary system. Cause of death is generally multiple organ failure, although in most cases, affected individuals will be terminated and decontaminated prior to this. For containment procedures in these instances, see Addendum 5051. Here we have contamination in the environment at Site Alpha 505 blank. Note dead or dying plant life. SCP-5051 also has an increased rate of spread through non-viscous fluids such as water, as would be expected of normal ink. Any contamination of the water table with 5051 must be prevented at all costs due to the potential for an NK-class end-of-the-world scenario. It is unknown whether 1's aforementioned property of an inversely proportionate rate of spread will manifest in fluids, as experimentation with such high quantities of 1 is strictly forbidden. Thus, any environmental 5051 contamination in water sources must be met with immediate damming and drainage into storage tanks of all affected areas. Addendum 1. Procedures for dealing with 5051 containment in humans. Administration of multiple dose activated charcoal has been shown to slow the progress of 1 contamination in humans, but is unable to halt the process. The only known methods of treatment for 1 contamination in humans are by immediate excision of the affected area or continuous application of ethanol to an affected skin region. Topical ethanol treatment will not prevent the affected individual from transmitting 1 to other surfaces and is thus highly discouraged, except in the case of essential personnel, in which case containment procedures must be observed as in all other sites of secondary 1 contamination. In theory, excision or amputation of affected areas would be the gold standard for treatment, but contamination of surgical instruments and personnel remains a problem. Therefore, all cases of 1 contamination in humans other than essential personnel should be dealt with by termination, followed by a standard procedure of 4M sodium hydroxide immersion and incineration of the remains. Addendum 2, Retrieval History. SCP-5 was acquired by the Foundation from the town of Blank in Oman, when the town in question was quarantined by the Omani government due to reports of a black fluid beginning to seep out from the town's post office and causing the deaths of a number of its inhabitants. Fortuitously, the arid and remote location of the incident prevented wide-scale environmental contamination of 1. The Foundation retrieved 5051 with blank casualties. No other anomalous properties of the town's post office or the town itself were detected. It was deemed necessary to terminate blank civilian inhabitants of blank who were deemed likely to be contaminated. The incident was reported as a non-extranormal chemical spill. And the second picture is remains of a duck contaminated by one. Affected wildlife must be euthanized to remove one transmission routes. So, as we've learned about Keter, Keter's not just how dangerous it is whether or not they're actually able to contain it. And since it sounds like they can just barely contain SCP-505, that's probably why it's Keter. So, in any case, that about does it for this episode of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. I believe it's episode 111. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's 111. In the next episode, we're going to start with the instant growing plants and go up through the soft death. So, if you liked it, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later.